Welcome on in to the end of the week here on WagerTalk Extra, final edition already. But don't worry, we saved some great info for you on today's program. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and today I'll be joined by Andy Lang talking a little auto racing, both F1 and NASCAR events this weekend. And best to do it in MMA betting. It's going to be breaking down the UFC 74 event in Vegas this weekend with the main event and his fight to watch. So plenty to end the week here for you on a good note and hopefully a profitable note, reminding you that no matter what you're cashing in on, that money is all going to spend the same, even when you're cashing in on NASCAR, which is where we're going to kick it off with my man Andy Lang first. We always like to start by looking back at last weekend's event. And man, another day when we have to talk about Chase Elliott some way, somehow here in the Stenhouse Awards segment. So biggest gaffe of last weekend got a little dicey, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Elliott is going to win this week's Stenhouse Award. Carlos Sainz in the Formula One race, very close runner-up. His radio came over and said, let's push the guy in front of us to make him use up his tires. And Dan, not 2 seconds later, Carlos Sainz got too close and actually plowed into the back of him and actually ran into the tire. So he literally did push the guy in front of him, but no Carlos. We meant literally, figuratively, you push him, not literally push him. And then Chase Elliott comes in and says, hold my non-alcoholic beer while I'm driving NASCAR. Denny Hamlin bumps him a couple times, so Chase Elliott retaliates, gets into the back of Hamlin on purpose, wrecks Hamlin and himself, taking both of them out of the race. What was funny about that one is he got suspended for this week's race. So he got 0 points last week because he wrecked. He got 0 points this week because he's suspended. And in his pre-race interview, he talked about how important it was to get as many stage points as possible and finishing races strong. So he's going 0 for 2 in the span of a week in races after he talked about how important it was to finish races. So congratulations, Chase Elliott. This coming after he missed a chunk of the season after breaking his leg in a snowboarding accident. So I got to say the sponsors and team just thrilled with Chase Elliott this year. What a great performance.
Yeah, hats off. Hats off. If only the Stenhouse Award got him some cash and got him some accolades, because, man, has he been the gift that kept on giving here. Do as he says, not as he does, apparently, for Chase Elliott not finishing another race. All right, how about this weekend, Andy? In NASCAR, we're looking at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. How are you going to be betting this weekend?
It's a bit of a strange looking track. It's a 1.25 mile track, I believe. It's kind of Darlington-esque, where you have one side of the track that looks a little bit different than the other. They've only raced here one time. Joey Logano was your winner, so we don't have a whole lot of options, we don't have a whole lot of data at this particular track. So one thing I did is I took the averages of Darlington, Dover, Bristol, and Richmond. Those are somewhat smaller tracks, not quite as big as the cookie cutters. And so we're looking at the top finishes. Christopher Bell is number 1. Now Chase Elliott's 2, but we're going to take him out because he's not racing this week. So second's going to be Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, William Byron, and Tyler Reddick are rounding out your top 5 there. And, Harvick has been up near the front. He finished 11th, lost a small bet on him. I had him in the top 10, Dan, and he was running the top 10 all race. He got pushed and spun. He comes all the way and fights back to finish 11th, one spot out. But doesn't change the fact that his car's been really good and he's been really good. I wouldn't be scared to come back and bet him in the top 10. Keselowski's getting better with that new car, and William Byron's been a force. So you have to look at him. And Tyler Reddick has been strong as well. So I think it's kind of the usual suspects around here. Obviously, you got to keep your car clean. You can't get involved in any of these wrecks, and it's kind of showing you can't get involved in any bumping and banging with guys that will retaliate. I mean, Denny Hamlin was having a good race until Chase Elliott took him out. Ross Chastain is always good for a nice wreck. So when you're betting, you almost want to bet on these guys that aren't going to be involved in controversial tactics on the track, because it really can cost you. So, but I think you're looking at Chevy again to win. I know Ford won last week, but the Chevys were very strong again. I think Chevy to win is just going to be a solid bet on these oval tracks that are not the real short ones or the restrictor play. I think that's going to be a solid bet for the rest of the season.
So you have to handicap who's like the goody two shoes, the guys who go to church more often than the other racers. That's the
You
way to do
do.
it, right, Andy?
You seriously do have to look at who is not going to get in a fight at 200 miles an hour and get taken out of the race. It is a real thing that you have to handicap. It sounds silly, but you can't bet on Ross Chastain. You can't. He's going to run into somebody every single week. You know that. And if he gets taken out of the race, it's just a bet loss. But at the same time, if he doesn't wreck, he's good. So it is a strange thing that you have to handicap, but you do have to keep it in the back of your head.
Well, and if you don't want to have to handicap it, that's why you just buy Andy Lang's plays. Boom. There's a
Nice
segue
segue.
for you,
Nailed
Andy.
it.
Exactly. Well done. That's why they pay me the big bucks. All right, Andy, let's get into Formula One for this weekend. You have a best bet coming for the folks, but first, what can we expect? It's the Spanish Grand Prix in F1 action this weekend, and what's the course kind of looking like, and how are you going to bet it outside of the best bet that you're going to be giving the folks in just a few moments?
I've made the case that I think Red Bull is better than they're even letting on this year. And I think I was proven right because last week's race, Monaco, that was not supposed to be a track that they were going to dominate at. Verstappen wins by 20 plus seconds. And so if they're going to do that on a track that their car is not suited for, I think they could win this race on this track. When you're looking at it right here, they could win this by a long time. You look at that massive straightaway, and oh my gosh, that has Red Bull written all over it. If they're behind anybody, that DRS is going to open, and they are going to fly past them. As long as they have even remotely decent qualifying, which they should because of the setup of this track. This is a Red Bull race. I mean, this is a Red Bull double podium if I've ever seen it. So we see that big long straightaway, and then even on the back, you've got another DRS detection zone. So you're gonna have two big long straights. Fernando Alonso said last week was the best chance that he had to try and get Red Bull, and he finished second, which was great. But unfortunately, he was 20 plus seconds behind the leader. I think this is going to be kind of a fairly standard race. I think the Red Bulls are going to be 1-2 unless something goes wrong. I think you're going to look at Fernando Alonso is probably going to be up near the top. I thought the Mercedes upgrades looked pretty good. We're going to see what they can really do on a track like this when they can really open it up. We saw Alpine's race really good. I thought Ocon did a fantastic job. He started up near front and kept it up there. And then you're seeing some of these other teams that are just really bad, and some of these drivers that are really struggling, like Logan Sargent just doesn't seem to be getting any better. Nick DeVries, I guess, is getting a little bit better. But you're really just seeing the big separation as Red Bull has separated itself from everybody else. And then you've kind of got Ferrari, who can't stay out of their own way, Mercedes, who are bringing the upgrades. And then you've got the Aston Martin, but it's not the Aston Martin team. It's just one driver. Lance Stroll can't navigate a full race without doing something stupid. So you've kind of got Fernando Alonso and the Red Bulls up at the top, and then you've got your big gap down. But expect a huge race from both Red Bull cars.
All right, so we noted to look towards Red Bull this weekend in F1 action. How about a best bet for the folks? You think you have maybe a little angle on a top 10 racer? Who are you eyeing?
Yeah, this guy has slowly gotten better as the season has gone on, and I'm going to look at Lando Norris to
Mm.
finish in the top 10. He was good last week at Monaco, and this is 3 out of 4 races that he has finished inside the top 10. He had the disaster at Miami, but last week I thought he was great in practice and in qualifying. He had a top 10 finish, and then you look at the 2 races before Miami, there's a 6th and there's a 9th. So as long as McLaren keeps improving, Lando Norris is a really good driver. He's always going to be finishing ahead of his teammate who isn't quite there. And as we saw last week, Sergio Perez took himself out of the race with bad qualifying, and Norris finished in 9th. Even if Perez ends up inside the top 10, Norris is still going to be there. I don't expect the Alpines to be as good as they were. So this line is minus 140, and I think this might be a really sneaky way to start profiting off of this top 10 bet. Most of them are just incredibly juiced out of, you're not going to be able to play them. We might be able to squeeze a few races out of Lando Norris top 10 before the books move this to minus 200.
I love it. So definitely hop on now if you're joining us here on a Thursday before it gets a little too juicy for you. Only minus 140, Lando Norris in the top 10. And Andy, as we're right around the weekend, that means it's time to hop on and try out Andy 3 and ride with you for the weekend at a terrific price. What kind of stuff are they going to find in your packages for this weekend?
Yeah, it really does seem like we're doing most of our damage on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
2 weekends ago, I was a plus 4.7 units over the weekend. Last weekend, it was around plus 3 units. So we do this every Friday. Use the promo code Andy3. Get your 3-day pass for $39. So we bring in those units on the weekend. That's where we have most of our sports, especially this weekend where we've got a golf tournament, UFC, we've got Formula One, as well as any other sports we have. So even though NBA and NHL is really dying down, this is a great time of year because our sports that we specialize in keep going. And Dan, a little birdie, told me that the PLL, Professional Lacrosse League, may or may not be starting this weekend. So that is something that we have to look forward to moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Premier Lacrosse League kicking off this weekend is definitely a chance to boon some bankrolls, as you can just blindly bet on underdogs against the spread and cash you about a 65% clip. So definitely keep your eyes peeled as Andy continues through the season here. Andy, always a pleasure having you on. We'll have you back next week, but another episode nearly coming to a close. But first, we're going to step aside, take a quick little break, and then Kyle Anthony going to have the final word on UFC for this weekend right after this here on WagerTalk Extra. Welcome on back here to Wager Talk Extra. So we got all set up with Andy Lang's thoughts on the UFC on the Wednesday edition of Wager Talk Extra. And as promised, we're shutting down the week with one of the best in the biz. It's Kyle Anthony, and he's got his thoughts on the main event, and he's also got a fight to watch. So Kyle, I say we don't waste any time and get right into this main event. UFC Vegas 74, and we got Cara France against Albazi. And this one, it's a pick 'em through and through. So which way are we picking them?
All right, well, we got the main event here. We have Amir Albazi versus Kai Kara France. As you said, this is a pick'em. It's pretty much stayed around there for the last week or so. When you're looking at this, you've got Amir Albazi, who is going to look to wrestle, is going to look for that control time, positionally winning on any time he can get his hands on you. And then the other side here, you've got Kai Kara France, fantastic striker, well-rounded. But the big thing here, the biggest question is going to be, can Amir Albazi take and keep Kai Kara France down? Now, since he's entered the UFC, Albazi 4-0, 16-1 in his professional career, has looked good in certain spots. Since entering the UFC on takedowns, he's 6 for 13. Not the highest level opponents, but he has looked good and doing what he is supposed to do, utilizing that wrestling. But there is definitely some issues here. And the one thing here is that Kai Kara France is fantastic stopping takedowns. He really is fantastic. And there's a couple things that he does do. And one of them is definitely going to be the fact that he really does a lot of fakes, a lot of feints. And these are the kind of things that draw out opponents, make them reactive once he's doing that. And when somebody like Albazi, who's going to look to really cut that distance, who's going to be looking to really level change, I think it's going to be difficult to get inside of some of these fakes, these feints, and these striking from Kai Kara France. But also on the other side of this is the fact that Kai Kara France really has fantastic takedown defense, 87% takedown success rate on defending takedowns. That to me says a whole lot when you're looking at someone like Albazi, who absolutely needs to get these takedowns. And when you're looking at really the striking, if it stays on the feet, I don't see too much what Albazi can do. I'm not too high on his striking. Kai Kara France has fantastic footwork, hand speed, good movement, good angles to his striking, and I think that's going to help him big time. But when you're looking at even what Albazi does on the feet, his striking may not be that great, but also on the other side of it is the fact that he is defensively irresponsible. He can be hit. We've seen guys much less with the caliber of than Kai Kara France hit him, rock him. Although, yes, he's got these victories, he is very hittable. And when you're competition level, which is the last thing I think you really got to look at here, is the fact that, Kai Kara France has faced top, tough guys overall. He's fought Brandon Moreno, and in that spot, he looked good. There were situations where he was landing, he was rocking him, he was really touching up Brandon Moreno, who is probably the top of the heap when it comes to it. And overall, with his skill set, his takedowns, his movement, and also the fact that look who he fought. I mean, he fought Brandon Royval, he beat Cody Garbrandt, he beat Rogerio Bontorin, he beat Askar Askarov, and I say Askar Askarov is probably a better version of Amir Albazi, very similar to the path, very similar to the strategy, and in that fight against Askar, he was 2 for 14 on takedown attempts. Not very good, and that's how Kai Kara-France went out there, got the win, got the opportunity to fight for the title. And then the other side here, Albazi, I mean, 4-0 in the UFC, but if we take a look back behind the curtain of who he fought, I mean, he fought Malcolm Gordon, who's 2-4 in the UFC. He fought Zhalgas Zimagulov, who's 1-5 in the UFC. Then he fought Francisco Figueiredo, who is the less successful brother of former champion Davison Figueiredo. And then most recently, he beat a debuting fighter. Now, that doesn't say everything when you're fighting low-level guys, but boy, they have definitely different paths at this point. I really like Kai Kara-France here. I think he should be absolutely favored. He has all the tools, higher competition level and strength of schedule, has great takedown defense of 87%. I think this stays on the feet. Kai Kara-France has a lot of success on the feet. I think there could be a finish, but I absolutely do like Kai Kara-France to go out there and get this victory.
I love it. Great breakdown. And I feel like it's kind of rare when you see, especially in main events, these true pick'em prices. You typically you're seeing, some heavy juice one way, and then you're having to get creative, find a way to get on the dog or find a way to take the favorite at a prop. So just taking an outright win, I feel like is the rare play that we get for free here on WagerTalk Extra. Before we get into your fight to watch though, man, these last few weeks have been beautiful for you and your clients. I mean, let's be real. Your time at WagerTalk has been beautiful for you and your clients. But grabbing 15 units nearly in just 2 weeks' time, I know this is a run that you're pretty proud of, and you're hoping that run continues this weekend with a 4% package available over at your site, right?
Yeah. So it's been a nice run here. Hit a 5%, hit 4% not too long ago, the week prior to that. And this week, another 4% spot here. It's a plus money spot, some slight plus money here. I think it's a really, really strong spot. I actually already have up a 5% for UFC 289 the next week because I like the spot, want to jump on it. So definitely have some good spots here. I like 3 plays so far for this weekend. We'll probably be adding a 4th. So let's keep it rolling.
I love it, man. Let's keep it rolling indeed. And let's keep it rolling into your fight to watch. Who do you got? Because this one isn't a true pick'em price. We do have a pretty nice big favorite in this one. We have Felipe Lins with a plus 114 take back as he's taking on Maxim Grishin. How are you going to be betting this one, Kyle?
Yeah, so we got Grishin, who's minus 146. On the comeback here, Philip Lins plus 114. So this is going to be the opener to the card. And you've got Grishin, veteran, who's been around. He's pretty good striker, but his path is really kind of laying on you, grinding on you, working you up against the fence. That's been his path. That's where he finds success. On the other side here, Philip Lins, who, he good striker, does have power, but he came from the PFL, was their champion there, won $1 million, all sounds great, comes to UFC and gets popped for PEDs. Not the greatest thing overall. He starts out his career in the UFC 0-2, loses to Andrei Arlovsky and gets brutally knocked out by Tanner Boser. Now he's moved to the light heavyweight division, faced 2 different guys, and he fought Marcin Prachnio and OSP, not the highest level guys, did get the win, but not the most high-level guys when you're looking at it. But the clear issue here for Philip Lins is going to be his cardio. He really, really struggles to continually fuel these big shots. He has hands. He's got quick hands. He can get out there and land some big shots. But if he can't land this big shot or really hurt his opponent in that first round, it starts to tilt down for him. His output, his cardio, his pacing, his power, all of that starts to tilt down. And for when you look at what Maxim Grishin does and the style at which Grishin fights, he's a grinder. And this kind of works out well when you're looking at the apex cage, you're looking at the smaller cage here where he can kind of grind up on him. He can hold him up against the fence. Grishin will be physically the bigger guy. I think he'll be also the stronger guy as well too, pushing him up against the fence, grinding him. And that to me that first round could get a little dicey when Linz is throwing these big shots, but I think Christian's going to be able to last. I think he's going to be able to hold his own in those spots and just work him, drain that cardio. And as the fight goes on, I think more success, because there's really only one path to victory here for Linz, and it's going to be the knockout. And if you're looking at it, the durability of Grisham is, he's got a solid chin. The last time he was knocked out was back in 2016 against Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev is a killer, has great striking, so nothing, bad there. And then prior to that, it was back in 2011. So this isn't a guy that is going to just get knocked out and sparked out. He is going to be a grinder. He's tough to finish, and that to me says a lot. Plus, these guys, neither of them are a spring chicken here. You got 39 years old in Christian, 37 in Linz. So again, the style, even if Christian's kind of cardio is kind of tilted down as well too, he can lean up against Linz. He can hold Linz in certain spots. It may not be pretty, but I think that there's an opportunity for Christian to go out there, work him up against the fence, sloppy, dirty, keep him up there. And I think he can get out of that first round and win those next two, or find a way to get that late finish and melt Linz. So I do like Maxim Grishin minus 146 to get the job done.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Maxim Grishin, as you see from that graphic there, nearly, or actually over double the fights that Linz has had in his career. So don't think that old Philippi is going to be throwing anything at him that he hasn't quite seen in his career. We're looking at laying it with the favorite in fight number 2. That's Kyle Anthony's fight to watch, and he's one of my handicappers to watch. That's right. Head on over to his page at WagerTalk.com, WT.buzz/KA, 4% package loaded, and you just got 2 free plays right there. So what's a better way to thank him than grab that package for this weekend? Up nearly 15 units the last 2 weeks. No time like the present to hop on. And that's going to do it for another edition of Wager Talk Extra. Big thanks to Andy Lang getting us ready for auto racing this weekend. Big thanks to Kyle Anthony giving us the final thoughts on UFC 74 in sunny Las Vegas. I've been your host, Dan Alexander, alongside those great guests, reminding you no matter what sport you're cashing in on, that money all spends the same. Free play on the way out for you. Premier lacrosse action. We're going over in the Archers and Cannons game. You can find it somewhere on your book. Just look for PLL tab over in the Archers Cannons. There's a little free play from your host here. So hopefully next time we're talking on the show, we're recapping another winning weekend for the crew. Appreciate you tuning in. Hit that bell so you never miss any of the great shows here that we run on WagerTalk TV. And until next Tuesday, best of luck. We'll see you back here on WagerTalk Extra.